let's get into our main topic number 2, our WandaVision episode 6 full spoilers review. Guys, this episode had so much to unpack. I have so much notes. There were so many Easter eggs. There's so many things that were just
Oh
kind
my
of
God.
like, yeah, my notes are also ridiculous. Like the fourth
There's
wall
more.
breaking from Pietro to Vision, like lying to Wanda so that he can go out and experience what life is like for the people under Wanda's control. This episode gave us so many things.
I love this
so,
episode.
Chris, I want to start with you. What were some of your standout moments from the episode?
So I have a couple different moments written down here. To start at the very beginning, I love the intro sequence. Like
Malcolm in the Middle.
I grew up in the 90s. I used to watch Malcolm in the Middle on Fox. Like, this is a pure homage to Malcolm in the Middle. But not only that, I love that the lyrics for all of these opening sequences have been so good because they tie into the show so well and kind of tell you what's going on. The lyrics of the opening sequence are basically telling Wanda to like ignore what's going on and just continue creating the illusion and don't worry about everything that's happening. Just like feed the illusion, keep going, keep it going. I think the song says. I also love that in that opening sequence, on Agnes's pants, it says naughty, which is just like another hint that there's absolutely something going on with Agnes here. She definitely is not who she seems to be. Another one of my favorite parts is just Evan Peters' performance overall for the whole episode. He's excellent because he's fun, but also antagonistic. So within the sitcom world, he's meant to play this like fun, chaotic uncle. But in the grand scheme of the show, we still don't know if it's actually Quicksilver or if it's someone disguised as Quicksilver. But he reaches these levels of, antagonizing Wanda where he could very well be Mephisto in disguise or Nightmare in disguise or something that's delivered to cause her problems within the hex. So those were two of my favorite things. The commercial as well. The mid-show or mid-episode commercials have been really good and have also given a lot of insight into what might be happening later on in the show. So yeah, those are some standout things for me.
Yeah.
What about you guys?
For me, it's the same thing as Chris said. I grew up with Malcolm in the Middle. Like, that was happening during my time and everything. So I was never a huge fan of it at first, but on rewatch on Nick and everything, I grew up with it and I was more entertained by it. And I love how detailed they are with camera shots and aspect ratio with those type of shots throughout each episode. Because if you have seen Malcolm in the Middle, they took a lot of shots, over the shoulder shots of Pietro, showing the nice sleeping uncle, but showing the other kids in the back. And the way in this
they
episode,
do like the double focus shots.
Yes. So that was like those type of detail I love because it's very detailed to creation of the show and how much they put that much effort. The second thing I like is that in the show about Malcolm in the Middle, they also did the thing of speak and foreshadow, meaning that they speak about what's going to happen, but then it happens like 5 seconds later of what was going on. When Wanda asked the guy, that was a Frankenstein, Curb, and he kept saying, but the pumpkins are getting smashed. They were not getting smashed until 5 seconds later he said it, and then they were getting smashed. All the candy was being taken away, and then 5 seconds later, all the candy was being taken away. So I love those details into the show because that's what happened in Malcolm in the Middle and everything. So I love those type of details in the show. Like, those were my two favorites. Not really those pieces, but it's more in the director and plus cinematography style is what I love the most. James?
So first off, Elizabeth Olsen in that Scarlet Witch costume. Wow. God, she's gorgeous. But one of the biggest standout moments for me were just Billy and Tommy talking directly to the camera, much like in Malcolm in the Middle. But there's an additional layer because, Billy can alter reality much like Wanda. So he's in on the whole thing. Like, he knows everything that's going on. But this is normal life to him, so he doesn't see it any differently, which is crazy to think about. Another one of the biggest standout moments for me were pretty much when they went out trick-or-treating, right? and we get that conversation between Wanda and Pietro. It's like, why do you look different? And he gives that line. It's like, well, if I discovered Shangri-La, like, I wouldn't want to be reminded of like any bad things or whatever. I'm paraphrasing, but it's like, for me, that pretty much confirms that Wanda, well, not confirms, but it leads me to believe that Wanda did the same thing with Vision and kind of subconsciously brought back Pietro's corpse and reanimated without even knowing it. Or it's Mephisto, or it's Nightmare trying to mess with Wanda as Pietro, because later on, towards the end of the episode, where it like leans more into like the early 2000s, what he tells Wanda is like, yeah, I mean, why are you so worried? Like, your dead husband can't die twice. That's not something your brother would tell you. He wouldn't know how sensitive of a topic that would be for Wanda. So it's like, that's when I started to believe, it's like, this may not even be Pietro, bro. It could be Mephisto. Right. It could be Nightmare, since Nightmare has the ability to pretty much harness people's astral forms. Like, true. I don't know how that could be playing into it. Like, I don't know, man. Like, this episode brings up a lot of questions.
Did you guys notice that to speak to the kids looking into the camera, or whenever Billy's talking directly to the camera, did you guys notice at the very beginning of the episode where Billy's talking about how Wanda and Vision have been having a hard time lately and arguing a little bit, that Pietro is actually looking directly at Billy as he's talking to the camera?
Yes.
So Pietro's like fully aware of the fourth wall breaking that's taking place. And that also leads me to believe that like something is going on with that Pietro form.
And plus to add, about Pietro knows about the whole sitcom aspect that they're on the TV, because he also poked fun of it that they're being watched by Sword as well. So he knows what's going on outside of the whole hex as well. So that's key. And also in the chat said that one thing I'm excited for next week episode, because if you have watched the show of Two Broke Girls that Darcy got in capture within the hex, I hope in next week episode
she's like a waitress or something.
She's a waitress in that outfit, or she has the accent again, because it would be so for breaking that she plays her role again. But she knows. But then she knows, and like, wait a minute, what if I was doing my old job again as a Two Broke Girls? Hopefully they have a license to say that or something, because that would be so for breaking in meta. It would be amazing.
Yeah, they won't
I feel like
say.
I've done this before.
Yeah. They won't say Two Broke Girls, but she'll definitely be in that waitress uniform, and she'll definitely bring some type of reference. Like, have I done this before? It feels like something like that.
Or say like, why do I feel like I'm missing a friend or something? Like, what's my blonde rich friend or something like that? Because it will fit so for the role. So that's one thing that got me excited for Darcy, because she's also very beautiful. So I can't wait to see how her outfit looks too. But also to add to what the chat said is that the whole Nightmare, to what James said, that could also be true, because imagine is also Nightmare that's adding to more about Vision, because one thing that this show is doing is the creepiness, like the type of horror genre, because to see Quicksilver being the whole gray, like being dead and have those type of bullets in him, that creeped me out too. And I don't get creeped by easily. I do get scared easily, but creep out, not really. And when I saw that, I was like, you know what, guys, you're getting too good at being creepy here with this type of this whole makeup and stuff, because they play it very well.
Yeah, it's in those moments, it's like reality is slipping through.
Yes.
And she's seeing them exactly how they are. You know what I mean? So it's like I'm very confused as to how like who this Pietro is, like if it's actually him or if it's someone else just using Pietro to mess with Wanda, because I mean obviously he was someone extremely close to her life. But there's something about that WandaVision does really, really well, is just showing you this sitcom-esque reality that Wanda has built to try to cover up her trauma, which is something that Pietro even brings up, like you shut away most of your trauma from when you were a kid.
Trick-or-treating cutaway.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't remember it happening like that. And he's like, oh, you probably buried it because of the trauma. Like, the things that he says, he's fully aware of what she's doing. He even asks her when they have that moment later on in the episode, like, I really respect. He says, I really respect what you were doing. Like, where were you keeping all these kids? Like, I respect how you were really ethical about this. You kept all couples together. Like, you kept the kids asleep until you needed them in a holiday episode. Like, families have stayed together. You've given people better jobs. But then he's like, how did you do all this? So that also makes me suspicious of him, because he's probing her to try and get information about how she's doing this. And she really doesn't even know.
That was one of my favorite moments of this episode, because it's something that a lot of people complain, like, where's all the people, where the kids? And it also asks a question in the first 2 episodes, like, we are for the children, we are for the kids and everything. And then with this episode, we get the whole kids like popping out left and right, like, oh, kids are running around, like, what's been going on? But then I like what Vision did, because we know this town holds 3,000 people, and we only see like almost 10 or 20 cast members. So like, where are these other 3,000 other cast members that we're supposed to see? But then
they're just frozen in their yards.
Yeah, so I like how this gives that fill in the gap aspect, where we get told that in the center of the town where she lives, that's where people have the most consciousness, where people moves, where people have the jobs. In the outer, where Vision and where Agnes went, where is that when they're not being used or not being poured into the script or the cast, they're asleep in their bed, or they're barely awake, just standing around and just doing the barely any minimum. So I find that very interesting. I was very happy as a viewer to see that aspect as, okay, this town is way bigger than it is. And now it just became 10 times bigger. But 3,000 people finally know that they've been out in the scrim of the outskirts of town. But the inner is where they have the most consciousness. So I'm very proud of that.
Yeah, that is an excellent detail. And you're totally right. Watching Vision go from the center of the town out to the edge of the town. And like you said, we see people caught in a loop, like in the middle of town, because that's as much as she can control them, until finally he gets out to the very edge where they're just frozen because they're so far away from her that there's just no possible way she can make them do anything. Really, really creepy detail.
Yeah, this is where the writing gets really, really good for me.
Props to the writing.
Yeah, the writing's amazing because you empathize with Wanda. Like, again, I've said this before. This is someone that's been through extreme trauma. Like, she watched her parents die. She thought her and her brother were going to die. She falls in love. Her husband dies. Her brother dies. And this is all she has, right? But I love how the writing also shows you that there's still no real excuse for what she's doing to these people.
Right.
It's like, I was getting extreme Get Out vibes from this episode. Yeah, these people are stuck in the sunken place.
Especially
I love when
tear from that one woman.
Exactly. I was just gonna say that. Like, Vision just walks up, sees this lady, and she's just trying to put up this Halloween decoration thing, and she's just internally crying. She's suffering. There are thousands of people suffering, again with the kids too. Like,
question.
You just have these kids docile in their beds until you feel like animating them for just to go on with your narrative. That's psychotic, bro.
But do you think that those people are crying because of themselves, or crying because of that, but also Wanda suffering and depression herself? So do you think it's a mix of those two type of emotions being at the same time?
That's a great point. I think it's a mix.
It's a mix,
definitely. Because when Monica came out of the hex and she was describing what it felt like to be under Wanda's control, she said it felt like pure grief. So she's tapping into all these people's brains and also exposing what she's feeling to them. So besides just being trapped, they're also experiencing her grief. So I definitely think it's a combo of both.
Yeah, it's really, really messed up because they're definitely feeling her feelings, but they're also trapped. Like, these people had lives and they can't do anything. Their free will has been stripped away from them. Yeah. Like, Wanda is doing a terrible thing, and Vision needs to stop her. Someone needs to stop her. And I'm very, very curious to see where this is going to go. Like, just watching Vision being on the outskirts and seeing these people that don't move, that don't talk at all. And then when he gets to Agnes and she starts losing it when she comes into consciousness, she's like, all is lost. She thinks all is lost because Wanda doesn't even let them think about escape.
How do you
won't even allow them think?
Scene, though?
Yeah,
do you think that she's acting? Or do you think that she was
confused,
under a spell?
So me, I was confused myself about that.
I want to hear Vash.
Go ahead, Vash.
Me, I was confused about that because we have spoken about it before on the past couple of shows. Like, she's probably Agnes as the witch that worked for our boy Mephisto, but then now it looks like she's actually looks like she's in emotion, like in cry, like, hey, you know, all's lost. So like, either A, she's in a dual reality where she doesn't know who she is no more, or she understands who she is, but also is in conflict because of Wanda's powers are so strong. So it kind of makes her feel like she's actually part of town. And also, her telling Vision about the Avengers, oh, you're dead. So it kind of made Vision to question himself as well, like, wait, Avengers, what Avengers? Oh, I came here to save you guys. I don't know who I am. So like, that conversation was so meta, but so informative for Vision. But I'm curious to know that when he went outside and screaming in pain, which we are going to talk about in a few, but is he going to remember all that he just found out about the Avengers or anything? Or is he going to get like a memory wipe to like Men in Black, just get a little snap, like, hey. So like, so many questions, but I'm confused. Like, I don't know how to feel, if she's really Agnes, part of the town, or she's having a dual reality of who she don't really know who she is because how strong Wanda powers are.
I think she has way more agency than we're supposed to believe, because in the last episode, you know, the kids got Sparky, and then they found Agnes with Sparky dead, and she gives us a story as to how he died, but we don't know if that's true or not. Mm-hmm. She could have very well have killed Sparky to accelerate the boy's growth, you know, but then Wanda stopped them from doing that. Her conversation with Vision at the edge of the Hex could very well be to instigate him to get to move outside of the Hex, so Wanda expands the Hex. So, like, I feel like everything that she's doing, she's very aware, and she has motives, ulterior motives outside of the surface level, what we see in the show. And I think that we're going to learn more about her in the last 3 episodes here. I think each episode's supposed to be an hour long, so I'm stoked about that.
Yeah, I'm extremely excited for extended episodes. And Chris, I agree with you completely with everything you just said. Like, I feel like she definitely has ulterior motives with everything that she's doing, and she's playing Vision to play Wanda in this moment.
Totally.
Like, she's definitely allowing him to make him think that he unlocked her brain, telling him that all is lost, telling him all of these different things to confront Wanda so that she can again expand the Hex. Because this episode also confirms for me that at the end of this series, Wanda is going to expand the Hex to the entire globe, and she is going to mutate everyone. Some people, much like the X gene, some people will be changed, some people won't. Now, this is the question I have for you guys. Do you think there's a possibility, and would you like to see Darcy get powers?
Is Darcy an original character, or is she from the comics?
She's an original character.
She's an original character, yeah.
I don't really know if... So, this is my theory that I just thought of right now. So, to add to what James thought about the Hex going around the world, I thought the same thing, because if the Hex could expand, maybe it could go around all around the world. But then, to contradict that, what happened if she becomes the villain in Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness? What happened if she's actually not the co-partner with Doctor Strange in the movie, but she's actually the antagonist? But
I would say that's pretty likely.
Yeah, so with the way this is going, maybe she could become the antagonist. But to answer to what James is saying, I believe Darcy could get power, and if she does, she could become quick. I don't know if Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the show, is going to be part of this universe, since it's technically 5 years later, and with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. kind of became its own thing and everything. So if Darcy wants to become Quake, I don't mind that. Quake is a very strong character. Quake has worked with S.H.I.E.L.D. and S.W.O.R.D. in the comics, and Quake has worked side by side with Nick Fury. So if Darcy becomes Quake, is the only thing I will find interesting. And Darcy could be connected with Inhumans or something like that, with some type of Quake powers, because Quake powers are from the Inhumans, and that could probably connect something like that and bring back.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't necessarily want her to have powers. I think
here.
her character is unique and cool the way she is.
Agree.
I just thought it would be interesting now that we know that she's in the Hex. Like, could she be mutated in some way? But Chris, what do you think?
I'm not opposed to her having powers if it's done well, but I do appreciate the characters that are strictly human, because it shows in the MCU that you don't have to have superpowers to be extraordinary. You know, like the stuff that we've seen with Darcy and Agent Woo over the course of the show, even Monica right now, like we know that she's going to get superpowers, but like technically Monica is still a regular human right now, and they're totally capable. They're totally capable individuals. You know, we got to see Jimmy Woo and Monica kick some ass in this most recent episode. So I would rather Kat Dennings continue to play like a normal human who's still very much involved with the happenings of the MCU. But if it's done well, I wouldn't be opposed to her getting powers, I guess.
And plus, I'm happy that all the sword agents became clowns. That was hilarious. That they're all part of the circus. I wish
how Wanda receives them.
Yes, and I wish Commander Hayward became part of the Hex too, because I would love for him to get what he deserves. He's a dick, but I'm curious to know why is he have something against heroes? Because his line, he goes a bit emotional in that scene. So I wonder if he has something against heroes with that 5-year gap of Monica not being there and everything. Like, what is it? Because he feels like heroes are the ones that caused this with Thanos and everything. Is this what he has against heroes? Because he believes that they cause more harm than good. Because since he is the head chief and everything of Sword, he probably believes that they should be more powerful than the actual heroes. But also is questioning because he had Vision in pieces. So I'm curious to know was he happy that Vision was coming out because he wanted the parts back to Sword? Because he didn't seem so excited that Vision was coming out. He was happy that, he wants his own freedom. But at the same time, he looks more happy because he's like, hey, I'm getting my toy back that I was making weapons of. So that's what I felt like. How did you guys feel about that?
I definitely think you're onto something. Like, I really enjoyed that they're exploring two different perspectives here. One from someone who was snapped out of existence during the blip, and one who had to live through those 5 years with 50% of the Earth's population disappearing. So, like, Hayward's a dick, and I do not like him, but he makes a lot of sense, and I feel like his feelings are justified, considering that from his perspective, the Avengers failed, and half of humanity got wiped out. So what are superpowered people worth to him? Nothing. You know, he, an average man, at least for what we know right now, we don't know if he's a Skrull or if superpowers or anything else. He's just a dude, like, did the best that he could during those 5 years to try and keep humanity going, you know? So his argument with Monica in the middle of the episode where he tries to use those 5 years against her, I feel like is justified. I don't agree with a lot of his actions, but like I can see where he's coming from, you know? So I think it could be as simple as that. Like you said, Vash, like he probably just has a chip on his shoulder from having to live through those years because superpowered beings failed.
Yeah, I agree with you guys 1000%. Like, I think if I'm going along the track that Hayward is a human being, he is definitely justified in his feelings, like you guys already said. Like, for 5 years, they had to pull together any resources that they could because there was no, like, full team of Avengers to save the planet if everything went to shit. Like, it's Sword's responsibility to be the sword and shield for the entire planet. So he had to make do. And I definitely think that he was using Vision's body to experiment, to fight, to try to make weapons, to protect the planet. Definitely. So from that perspective, he's not wrong. You know what I mean? Like, we have to protect ourselves. Like, we can't just rely on these superpowered beings to do absolutely everything for us. Maybe he also feels jaded from Captain Marvel never coming back to try to help them. Right? It's been years.
She pissed off a lot of people by not coming back.
Yeah, it's been years since anyone saw her. What were they doing, right? Like, Thor was getting drunk. Captain America he was helping people, but the Avengers, they were active, but not on the level to his satisfaction, right? And because we know they were still doing stuff across the globe.
Right. And that's the thing that I wish we see as like a mini series or like a 5-episode, like from the human side, from the whole civilians. What was it that when the heroes were saving other planets or other places around the world, But what was civilians? How did they feel? Like when it's just, oh, we just have like 6 heroes now instead of all 20 of them. What can we do? Cops are gone. A lot of the cops, a lot of the doctors, a lot of the firefighters. Maybe the top doctors that were supposed to help cancer and everything are all gone. So like, what is it that most people that couldn't do? Some people that were supposed to have surgeries, but their doctor got disappearing blip. You can't have surgeries now, so it's like I'm really curious to know if we ever get that. And I saw in the chat about Jimmy Woo. Hopefully, we do get some type of story of him, like a miniseries, because I really like his character. His character is very entertaining. Like I really want more of him. And with Monica, I want them two to work together, and hopefully gets inductive into Sword, because I want more of his character. He's so entertaining. His chemistry with the cast has been so good.
I know on Twitter, a show is being pitched to Marvel that's like Jimmy Woo and Darcy, like an X-Files type show. Where
I hope so.
Investigating like oddities in the MCU. I'm all for
I'm on
that.
board.
Like,
a good 5 episodes of 4.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Yeah, it would be great.
Again,
just
that would be a show where like it's just humans showing that they're exceptional within the MCU. Like you don't need superpowers. I think that'd be so cool.
Yeah, I would love to see a series like that, just like a 5-6 episode mini series of just like 30-minute episodes. That would be dope. Like Darcy and Jimmy Woo would be, that would be so dope. But man, like I can't wait to see what's going to happen as the Hex expands, right? Because this was just the beginning. We're going to see it expand even more over these next couple of episodes. But Chris, earlier on, you brought up the commercial, and I want to talk about that real quick. What did you guys think about the commercial? Like, the only way to survive is to snack on Yo Magic.
Right.
Like, what do you guys think that means? Like, do you think that that's a reference to Vision needing to drain Wanda of her powers in order to stop her? Do you think it has something to do with like a past trauma that showed up as a commercial? Like I've seen this in my head so many different ways. Like, is this like a reference to like Mephisto like stealing her powers potentially? Like, what do you guys think? I've been thinking about this for days.
So for
Vash, go for it.
I was gonna say for me real quick, because I think it's a reference for our boy is Billy Powers. I think it's about his powers, because that commercial happened in the mid, and right after that we got the powers of Tommy and Billy. So I think like you got trust in your powers, like your magic, like the sons. So like that's what I felt like it was for the kids getting the powers, and you got trust in them. That's what I think is you gotta survive within your powers. You gotta trust your powers is what I felt like I was trying to get at.
I think from my perspective, the commercial is talking about magic being consumed by an entity. So like the way I read the commercial is the shark is some type of malevolent being. And it almost seems like either Wanda or like you said, Vash, maybe one of the boys, maybe Billy's powers are being sapped, but it seems like she's made some type of like Faustian deal with this like malevolent entity. And I know I keep pushing Mephisto and Nightmare a lot. I still am not 100% convinced that that's going to be the case. But like the commercial, the product is Yo Magic, and the tagline is the snack for survivors. And basically the kid on the island makes a deal with this malevolent shark to get something, right? But then something's taken away from him. He's not even able to open the yogurt. His life is completely drained, and he ends up dying before he can even open it. So I think we're away from past traumas now, and I definitely think the commercials are starting to represent things that have either, well, maybe not, we're not fully out of the woods in terms of past things, but we're getting closer to the present. Like, I think this commercial could represent something that's happened recently, maybe just before we entered the show as the audience. You know, like whatever type of deal Wanda has made with some sinister character before the show started, I think that's what this commercial is referencing. Like, someone has made her stronger so she can use her magic, and they can consume that magic so they can survive. You know, but that's just what I took away from it. James, what about you?
Yeah, that's pretty much like what that's the conclusion that I came up to, right? Like, I had a bunch of different theories, and it's like, no, this makes sense, especially when you tag in the line of dialogue from Pietro where he asks her straight up, like, how did you even do all of this? and she doesn't remember. She just remembers being in the darkest depths of despair, and then she created this world. So in the darkest depths of despair, devils come to visit you to grant you your wishes.
Totally.
You know what I mean? So it's like, I think it's definitely something like that. And then that entity is feeding all off of the magical power that she's giving off within the hex, which is why when the hex takes over the entire planet, that's when I think this entity will reveal itself, and then we'll find out even more information. But I love these commercials. They're so telling. You have to pay attention to all of the dialogue, all of the visuals, and it's just great storytelling, man. Like, it's amazing.
Yeah, and Mephisto's a character who's been known to do stuff like that. You know, in Spider-Man's One More Day, Aunt May dies, and Mephisto's like, hey, I can bring Aunt May back, but you're going to have to give up your relationship with Mary Jane. That's what I want in return. So it's typically a trade with these types of characters, and usually what you're getting isn't always worth what you're giving, you know, or there's some type of trick involved to it. So I'm excited to see where it goes from here.
Yeah, for sure. Next thing that I wanted to talk about was, why do you think that Vision was being torn apart when he exited the Hex? So I'm thinking that whatever magic was used to create this pocket dimension, whatever magic was used to give Wanda this extra boost of power, is tied to Vision. So Vision has to stay within the Hex for, I guess, the contract to remain complete, if you will. Like, how did you guys take that?
Right.
So how I felt like I said earlier, Vision was already torn apart from Hayward. So he was put together because of Wanda with her magic, but not put together like Stark, like Bruce, like he was not put back together in a robotic way with magic that Wanda did. So him being outside of the Hex, he's just getting torn apart because he's not put back together, so he cannot walk without her magic at the moment. That's what I saw and believe, because Hayward was just more happy to see him being torn apart. He didn't go and try to help him already because he knew that he's already torn into pieces when he's outside.
That's what I thought originally as well, but the reason why it doesn't work for me is because we know everything that's changed in the Hex, it still remains changed outside of it. So why does he start to become pulled apart? You know what I mean? Like, we've seen so many references of that. We've seen how Monica's body has been mutated and changed on a molecular level. We've seen her uniform that was Kevlar changed into it was the 80s clothes, 70s clothes, right?
The 70s clothes.
The 70s clothes, and it stayed that way. The rope, the tether that was sent into the Hex, it came out, and it's still a jump rope. So to me, it still shows that anything that's changed in the Hex, once it leaves the Hex, it remains exactly like that. So that's why I couldn't get on board with, well, he's leaving the Hex, therefore the power's wearing off and he's falling apart. But it could be that. It just doesn't work for me because we've seen evidence to the contrary. Like, Chris, what do you think?
I think I land somewhere right in between both of you. Like, I definitely think that if Wanda has made a deal, Vision is at the center of that deal. Like, she wanted to bring him back to life because of how much she loved him, right? And she was tired of being alone. But to Vash's point, I do think him leaving the Hex kind of starts to revert him back to the state that he was in prior to Wanda kidnapping him and bringing him to Westview. So I'm not like one way or the other, but a kind of like a combo of what both of you are proposing here. I don't know, man. It's so weird with what's going on with Vision. Like, I can't tell if Wanda is powering him or what.
But things to add is that, was he being breaking apart or being pulled back into the Hex? Because the way it seemed like he was being pulled back, like his pieces, it just looked like it was extremely painful being pulled back. Right. But at the same time, it looked like he was never really being torn apart. Like, it doesn't look like he was more in pain, because he looked like he wanted to get out, but not really being brought back. He doesn't want to get pulled back into the Hex. He wanted to escape. He wanted to get his memories back. So, like, that's why I felt like his type of pain and that type of agony is what I felt like. Not like, hey, I'm being hurt, can you guys help me? It's more like he wanted to escape the hex, that type of prison, instead of being pulled back.
And it's really tough to say exactly what's going on, because in terms of like how the hex works and what we've been studying and what we know about it over the last 6 episodes, like James, you're absolutely right. Most things that come out of the hex have maintained their integrity and just exist as they were in the hex. But in this instance, we're getting some new information here. The hex is reacting in an uncharacteristic way that we haven't seen before. So it might be like Vision specific, like you said. He might be tied to the hex in some way, James. So that's why it's like pulling him back in. But I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't know either. But that's just like the strongest theory that I landed on. Because when you think about it, Wanda didn't even know he was being pulled back in. She didn't even feel it.
Right. Billy was
so it's like, exactly. So that leads me to believe Wanda wasn't even pulling him in. There's something with the hex. There's something with the deal that was made. Vision is tied to it, and that's why he was being physically pulled back in. And Vision is going to keep trying to escape, and that's why Wanda has to expand the hex to the entire planet, because there's nothing you can do. You can't escape if the hex covers the entire planet. So this episode, it just brings up so much. Like, I just want to move on to another thing real quick. When Monica says that her guy is on the way to help them get back into the hex. There's a lot of theories going around now that her colleague, the person that she's talking about, could be Reed Richards. I don't know if I buy it, but it could make sense that he's the engineer that she's talking about. Like we talked about before, it could be Blue Marvel,
right,
that she's talking about. You know what I mean? But maybe it would make more sense if it's Reed Richards. But I don't know. What do you guys think? There's a lot of theories as to who she's talking about.
If it is, think we have enough evidence to say exactly who it is. Like,
right,
totally could be Reed Richards. I think it would make more sense if it was Blue Marvel. I don't know if Kevin Feige would introduce Reed Richards in this way.
Exactly.
So I'm still up in the air in terms of like who it is. I just don't have enough evidence to say one way or the other. Vash, what about you?
Like Chris just said, it's hard to bring up who it could be. But at the same time, if it is Reed Richards, if it's Blue Marvel, I gotta give props to the team on Marvel to keep this type of secret like hidden, like not being leaking it. Because for you to say is Reed Richards or anybody like a big name, that's a big opportunity on who is like. That's a leak where every type of news outlet article wants to talk about, and it's just huge. If it's Reed, this would be interesting because it will make the idea of the first episode or second episode when Monica came out and she spoke about the astronauts in space and everything, then that would make sense of how Sword is connected, then Reed and everything. So if that's connected, then it makes sense. But then how they're going to introduce Doom, like I'm really curious to know how's everything going to be introduced. So, and if it is Reed, this must be before they get the powers, before they get the cosmic powers as well.
Right.
So it's very curious to know how they're going to introduce everything, since Marvel is their own what if already with the whole MCU. So if they don't go by the whole comic source material, it's fine. Hopefully a lot of people don't get mad. But at the same time, it just depends what route they're going to take. So who is? There's also Ant-Man. Ant-Man knows how to build stuff too. There's
I mean, he's not an engineer though.
Right,
so sorry, but not him, but the original Ant-Man.
Hank Pym.
Yeah, Hank Pym. He knows how to engineer stuff, and he knows how to go into quantum realms. So
but I don't think he's an aerospace engineer specifically.
Yeah,
I know, but I'm just putting other scientists out there that just in case could build.
Yeah, I mean the third option is like it's nobody. Like
it's just be out of shock or left field.
Like, I'm going to meet my guy up on the hill, and then the next time we see her, it's her and Jimmy Woo just like driving that truck we saw in the trailers. Like we might not even get to see the person that she's meeting. So
because that's so true. Because when you go to talk to a guy, when you go with friends, like, hey, I'm gonna go meet my guy. Like most people be like, oh, that's probably a drug dealer out there, but we never know who the guy is. They're like, oh, you bet. They're like, yeah, but he's already long gone. I'm like, but you're not gonna introduce me to the guy. So what Chris just said is totally true because she said, my guy. We don't have to meet this guy. We can literally go, hey, I got the car. And we can see a random hand and probably a name tag or something. And just the person just went off.
Yeah, I hope it's not Reed. I think we're too early on in Phase 4 to introduce a character to Phase 5. But on the opposite of that, I think it would be really cool to have these characters fleshed out before they even get their powers, so that we're already so like attached to them already, and then when they get their powers, it's like, holy shit, that's really cool. But like chat, I really hope it's Blue Marvel. I think it would be a really cool deep cuts reference to bringing that character. It would also bring in some diversity. And to what Pedro said, maybe Wanda didn't realize that Vision was being pulled back in because Pietro was distracting her. I didn't even think of that. I was like, you know what? Because if we go on with the theory that Pietro isn't actually Pietro, it would make sense that she's being distracted so that Vision is outside enough to force Wanda to expand the hex even more.
Yeah, he's meant to be an agent of chaos. Mm-hmm. So I think distracting her is totally what he could have been doing.
But then why does she need to ask her son Billy to know where is he if she cannot feel him outside of the hex? Like, why does she need confirmation for her son?
I think it's because Billy was already connected. So just getting Billy to focus, just to see where Vision was easier than her trying to do it, so that she can then focus on using her magic to expand the barrier. That's just what I think.
That makes sense. But are we done with the episode? Because I also want to talk about theories for the next episodes.
Was there anything else that you guys wanted to bring up?
Yes, one last thing. We got mention of Monica's blood work in this episode, and how the hex has now transmuted her DNA twice. So this is definitely leading to Photon, I think. Like, without a doubt at this point. Like, this is going to be how she gets her powers.
Oh yeah,
and based on the trailers, if she's going through the hex one more time, and I think it's safe to say that she will be, that would have to be either a third time or a third and fourth time going in and coming out that her DNA is going to be rewritten. Because you have to think about it.
That's true.
Well, like, if you're going in and the hex isn't torn down while you're in there, you're going to have to come out as well.
Right.
We already know that Monica only went in and out, and that's twice that her DNA was changed. So Darcy at this point as well, she's had her DNA changed once. Will the hex drop down, or will she have to reemerge from the hex as well and get her DNA changed twice? So those are kind of the things that I've been thinking about in terms of Monica's character.
Yeah, I can't wait for her to get her powers. I think the actress does a really good job.
She's great.
I can't wait to see her in Captain Marvel 2. I definitely think she'll have her powers by then. And I would love to see them fighting side by side, and also having that confrontation of, where have you been all of these years? Why didn't you come see my mom while she was literally dying of cancer? Yeah. And to Carol's point, I mean, how could she know? Because she was saving the entire galaxy. Like, she took the responsibility on herself to use her amazing abilities to help people that can't help themselves throughout the entire galaxy. But there's still friends and family, people that love you and care about you, that you should check in on. And she hasn't been there in years. So that's definitely something I can't wait to see. I can't wait to see Photon and Captain Marvel versus whatever villain they're adding in to that movie.
Well, I'm so curious because the chat said as well, what happened if Hayward is working with Ross? That could also be interesting as well. Because Ross also has a hatred against heroes, Bruce, Tony Stark. He also has the hatred for it. So maybe it's possible as well that he is or was working Hayward, or maybe they have the same type of feelings against heroes as well. So Chan also said that.
I don't know if Ross has the same type of hatred though, because he has been trying to create super soldiers for decades. So that's what happened with Abomination. Like, he was trying to recreate the super soldier program. That's how Bruce Banner got his abilities, because he was like bankrolling that whole experiment to try and recreate the super soldier program. He's like obsessed with Captain America and trying to make his own super soldiers.
Whereas he wants to control them, but he wants to control those heroes. Hayward has more of a because he doesn't know, like, what is she doing? Like, he doesn't know, so he's more feared, not scared. Like, he's more feared of her.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah. this episode was amazing. Like there was just, again, like I said, there was just so much to unpack. I had to watch this episode like 3 times because there's just so many things that you can miss. Like what was his name? The black neighbor that was dressed as Frankenstein. Like
Herb.
I love Herb. Yeah, that's his name. I love how he's like, do you want me to try that differently? You want me to do that again?
Yeah, he is also totally aware of what's going on. That because this is not the first time we've seen him kind of break her spell.
Yeah. Also, another thing, I'm glad that we were on this topic now. Maybe I'm misinterpreting this, but he was getting information about things that didn't even happen yet. Or
I did speak about that.
Did it happen in other parts of the...
Vash was saying that like it was happening in that way because it was kind of paying homage to Malcolm in the Middle type sitcoms.
Yes.
Right. Because I was like...
That was weird, though.
Is it happening in other parts of Westview and people are reporting it? And because Speed and Quicksilver are so fast, they seem like they're in multiple spots.
That could totally
just threw me off for a second. I'm like, why is he reporting things that haven't happened yet?
Right.
So he says it and then it happens. But it could be because he's getting information from another part of Westview.
Right.
That has happened a lot in the show Malcolm in the Middle. So that's why I actually made that reference before, because that has happened where they broke something, but they didn't break it. You say, hey, why did you break the TV? But then like 2 seconds later, they broke the TV. So stuff in that style of the sitcom has happened before. That's why. Like,
that's right.
So it played very much in that tone. But also,
it's been years since I've seen that show.
Totally understandable. But me and Chris did talk about before that the 2 movies that they also made reference to was Parent Trap and plus The Incredibles. Mm-hmm. In the theater behind Wanda, Pietro, and them. So that's also very curious to know. And it makes sense because Incredibles is a family of heroes, and Parent Trap, you're trapped because of your parents, aka Wanda herself.
Mm-hmm. And it's also a twin movie.
Yes,
twin movie as well.
I was just gonna bring that up. It's also a twin movie, and we also have one twin that was switched out, if you will.
Right.
So there's a lot of references, man. I absolutely love this episode in every level possible. Like watching Wiccan and Speed use their powers. Like Speed starts running around and Wanda uses her hex powers to stop him in his tracks.
Like stop.
Wiccan does the same thing when he hears Vision and the Sword Agents. I thought
you're right.
Amazing, bro. Yeah. Oh man, this show is just so good. I can't wait for these next 2 episodes. What?
I would watch a sitcom with them as a family. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I really like this episode. If there's a sitcom that just followed them, I'd watch it.
Yeah. So that's my curious. So this is kind of like theory that we know. Each episode now is going to be 1 hour long. So next episode is going to be the whole 2000 era. The second to last episode is going to be the 2010s. Then obviously the last episode is going to be the year of 2023 that they are in that whole decade. But I'm curious to know is that in the 2000 era episode next week, what is it that they're going to do? Because the most popular during that era was Modern Family as well.
It's going to be Modern Family. I think they've already confirmed that it's Modern Family. There are even clips of Wanda speaking directly to the camera.
Yes, I heard saying that I have the feelings of the Mondays or something like that.
Yeah, I think it's a case of the Mondays.
Yeah, the case of Mondays. So yeah, you're right, because I feel like Modern Family will be either next episode or the 8th episode, but makes sense that is the 7th episode. So it's very exciting to know.
I suspect that because each of these episodes is going to be an hour long, next episode is probably going to be partially Modern Family, and then we're going to get into regular MCU for the remaining 2.5 episodes. At least from interviews that I've watched with like Paul Bettany and Elizabeth Olsen, it seems like we're reaching the point where we're going full-blown MCU. Paul Bettany even said that the last 3 episodes are like a full MCU movie. So I think we're getting back into the present day. I honestly don't know how much we're going to see of Modern Family, especially with the way their family dynamic is starting to break down. Now that Vision has experienced the outside of the Hex, he had that conversation with Agnes. Pietro's getting really antagonistic and saying things that are upsetting Wanda. Like, I think the sitcom portion is at its end because everyone involved, she just cannot control anymore. So, those are my predictions.
And then plus with her trying to expand more, she's going to lose control much faster because she cannot contain the whole force now and probably animals, more of these clowns, aka the sword agents, being involved now, so she has to control them as well. So it's like much harder for her to control every single person now, and to kind of give everybody a role. But I think the whole type of sitcom route is gonna end in episode 8, halfway, because that's in the 2010 type of era, and I think around with the whole Office, I think it's gonna be involving that as well. And I think that's because I haven't seen much of the Office, but I know that it does a bit for breaking. And I think in that type of episode is when it's gonna break the whole type of sitcom dynamic. That's my guess.
Yeah,
very possible.
I am really looking forward to see how Vision reacts to this, because it's obvious that Wanda can no longer alter his memories, like past what she's erased. Like,
Right.
I think, I don't know how Vision's going to react to this. It's like, I tried to step outside and I couldn't. Something pulled me back in, and he's going to blame Wanda. And I think that like Agnes and Mephisto, whoever it is obviously trying to put a rift between these two characters.
You just reminded me of something that Elizabeth Olsen said during an interview with Collider, Perry Nemiroff from Collider. She said they were having a conversation about clean slates versus blank slates in terms of where Wanda is at the beginning of the show. And when you said that Wanda was erasing Vision's memory, is she? Or were they both just plopped into this world with totally blank slates? Because, like, we know now that Vision can't remember anything from before Westview. And we also know that Wanda doesn't know how all this started, how she started doing this with her powers. So I think both of them could potentially be in the same boat, where they don't remember anything from before Westview, but they're kind of getting at each other's throats because the true villain hasn't been revealed yet. You know, the true culprit who's causing this to take place.
I see that being true.
Until you just said that, James.
Chris,
But
I see that being true a lot, because what James just said about last week's episode, where Wanda didn't even know how Pietro came. So for her to not even know, and she's the one that's causing most of this, it proves that there's another person that's really doing this. When Wanda herself said, I don't know where the children are, but then this week episode, children pop out of nowhere. So it's like questions there, like who's really the antagonist? Who's the one that's pulling the strings? And who really likes strings? And that is Tech Mephisto. Again, guys, we don't know, but we're just saying a lot of theories about Mephisto.
Yeah. I just want to know, like, what did Wanda have to sacrifice to get this? And she obviously doesn't remember doing it. She doesn't even remember what that sacrifice could be. Man, there's just so many possibilities for this show. And I can't wait for Friday so that we can see episode 7. And
I think
like,
I guarantee at this point is that the end of the show is going to be heartbreaking.
Oh, yeah.
We're not going to get a happy ending at the very end of this show. I guarantee it. And I don't know any inside information or anything like that, but like my prediction is things are going to end badly for everyone.
Yeah, I agree completely, because I think that's why it goes into Spider-Man 3, why it goes into Multiverse of Madness. Like, it doesn't end here. This is the beginning of whatever this arc is going to be about. This is just the beginning, and I can't wait to see where it goes.
And plus, it really questions that if the hex really goes around the world, how did it affect Spider-Man Homecoming if Spider-Man Homecoming was supposed to be 6 months later after Endgame?
Far From Home?
Yeah, sorry. Far From Home. So, like, it questions is like, what was the alternative? Like, was it Mephisto? Was it Mysterio? Like, all these things really real? So it just makes you question. Like, you probably have to rewatch Far From Home to actually know what was really real or not. So it's really curious to know how's everything going to intertwine.
I would think that J. Jonah Jameson's appearance at the end of that movie is probably the smallest thing that we get in terms of how the hex is affecting that movie. I do think that Spider-Man Far From Home taking place 8 months after WandaVision is something that they had to retcon a little bit. So that's why we're not seeing like the full effects of how the hex is affecting the world until the next Spider-Man movie with like Doc Ock and Electro coming back and stuff like that. But I think it can still work if, say, J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson is a part of these multiverses converging into the one. So I think it could still work. We'll find out though.
Pedro, thanks for the heads up. Yeah, I mean, we love spoilers. Honestly, like we go looking for that shit sometimes. Like just like the entire script for episode 6 leaked like days before.
Yeah,
and Chris sent it to me, and I read like half of it. And then when I watched the episode for the first time, I was actually following the Reddit script. I'm like, this is ridiculous.
When I watched it, I was like, oh, that script was verbatim.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So that was definitely the real script.
Yeah, they got to tighten up, man. Like, this is ridiculous. You cannot allow these types of leaks. But any final thoughts before we head out for the night?
I enjoy WandaVision so much. I enjoy what's happening with the series. I can't wait to see how we feel by the time we watch episode 7 and 8 and be like, yo, what the hell's gonna happen in episode 9? Like, I don't know, could be left, right, up, down, crisscross. So like, so many possibilities. And chat, I appreciate you guys being here every single week and to have a full discussion with us all the time, because it just brings a lot of theories, a lot of discussions that we didn't even bring up sometimes, and you guys help out. But I enjoy doing this news all the time. And WandaVision, so many comic book reference, and I can't wait to see what else sitcoms reference they do as well in the 2000s. And if they do more, can't wait to see what they do with the 10s and the current era we're in right now for that decade.
Yes.
So I'm really curious to know what they do. Chris?
Well, wait, quick pause, because we have a very special guest in chat, guys. Mephisto himself is in chat getting ready to steal Wanda's kids. Mephisto, if you're going to steal those kids, please let us know in advance. We would love the inside scoop. Please tell us what your plans are for the Hex. We would love that. Thanks. DM us.
I really want to know where the show's going. If you could just tell me how it ends right now.
But
I'm really curious who does that.
Any final thoughts?
No, like Vash, I'm super excited to see where the show goes. We are definitely in the third act of the series. And as we know, when it comes to writing scripts and filmmaking, like this is where shit gets crazy. So I'm super excited for next week's episode and the two after that.